God, stop sneaking up on me like that.
Sorry, I just want to know what you're going to do for Halloween this year.
I don't know. I think I'm just gonna put like a pumpkin up on my set.
Really? That's it?
I don't know, I can't think of anything else to do.
Why not finish the Halloween videos you started last year?
What Halloween videos?
Don't you remember you were going to do this found footage spoof?
I gotta get somewhere more quiet to record these videos. That'll do. And so tune in for the next video when I... Would you guys excuse me for one moment? Oh yeah! No, I'm not gonna do that.
Why not?
I lost the footage.
You lost the found footage.
I am aware of the irony.
Well, why don't you just go back into the woods and try and find it again?
What am I, stupid? What kind of an idiot, after encountering something paranormal in the woods, would go back to those same haunted woods in search of some found footage? You would have to be a complete moron to want to go back and do something like... It's me, Aaron, Professor Thorgi, and welcome to another episode of Thorgi Reviews, the review show where we tackle everything from the world of geekery. Let's talk about the Blair Witch. Coming out in 1999, this movie was a cultural phenomenon. Not so much for the movie itself, but for what the film meant, and for how the film was promoted. Because back in the 90s, nobody could just Google, "Is Blair Witch real?" They advertised this like it actually happened, and I remember back in junior high, I and all the other students would argue back and forth, "It's real, it's not real, it's real, it's not real, no man, it's totally real, nuh-uh, totally fake, no man, I know a guy whose cousin was part of the search team for these campers, it totally happened." It wasn't until these actors showed up at the MTV Awards and everyone said, "Oh, I guess it was fake." Or they survived. But even if the whole advertising campaign was a big fat lie, it did really make the found footage genre explode and introduced it to a larger audience, which was both a blessing and a curse. But even though the movie was fairly well received at the time for being so different, over the year people's opinions have slowly split on this film. Half the people out there think this is a groundbreaking, chilling story with a slow burn that terrifies you to your core, and the other half think it's a long, boring film with nothing happening and no payoff. And honestly, I understand both sides of the argument. I think it's got a great premise. I think the build-up all throughout the film is really solid. I think they do an amazing job making those woods terrifying, and most impressive to me is that it actually felt like a found footage film. You don't want found footage films to feel like a movie. You want it to feel like you just found a tape laying there in the woods and you popped it in a VCR and now you're seeing something that you can't explain. However, at the same time, the characters are completely unlikable, it takes way too long for anything to happen, and 90% of the dialogue is just swear words or shouting someone's name. Yes, I really did like that first Blair Witch film, but it's got problems. It's the definition of a problematic fave. But now, 17 years later, we finally have our first sequel to that original Blair Witch. Is anyone going to be upset if I don't count this? No, I didn't think so. So 17 years later, we finally have our first sequel to that original Blair Witch. And in this film, it's all about a documentary film team going out there into the woods in search of the mystery of the Blair Witch. But suddenly they start to uncover some strange activity when they wake up to discover that someone is leaving stacks of rocks and wooden figures, and oh my god, it's the first film! Yeah, I can't lie to you guys. The biggest critique that I have heard people make of this film is that it feels way too much like the first movie. And honestly, they're not wrong. This film hits a lot of the exact same beats as that first movie. However, here's the thing. Remember how I said that that first film had really good ideas, but the execution was flawed? This film almost feels like someone looked at that first film and went, "Hey, what if we just remade it, but did it right this time?" From the moment that this movie begins, It almost feels like someone had a checklist of all the problems that people have with horror movies, and they went, alright, let's just go down and check every single one of these off. Because you don't just see an improvement compared to the first Blair Witch film, this feels like an improvement compared to most found footage movies. Why are these people going out into the woods in the first place? They must be idiots to go out there. Well, in the first movie, sure, but in this one, the main character is the younger brother of the girl who got lost in the first film, and now they found some footage that points to her maybe still being alive out there, so they have to go out there to try and find her. That's actually a really good reason to go out there into those woods. Oh, but they're not prepared for this. They're not thinking any of this through. These are the most prepared horror movie characters I've ever seen. The main character is a medic, for crying out loud. He has actual real world skills that will help them survive in those woods. And the first 10 minutes of this movie is just them going, here's all the equipment that we're bringing to help us get out of these woods if something goes wrong. But why do they have to keep holding the cameras? No one would hold a camera in a situation like this. In this film, everyone has earpiece cameras that allow them to record hands-free. And they also have a camera and a drone that they can send up into the air to look at the entire surrounding area. Now, I'll admit that one of my biggest problems with recent found footage films is that everyone just has way too many cameras. When you have one camera, it feels like found footage. When you have a dozen cameras, it doesn't feel like found footage. It feels like a movie that someone's editing together that just happens to have really bad camera work. However, even I had to give it to this movie when they said that they can use the drone to find the road in case they get lost in the woods, and if they get separated from the group, each of the earpiece cameras have a GPS in them so they can locate each other. Damn, that's smart! But why would they stick around when everything starts to go wrong? That is the most impressive thing I can say about these characters. Because I can forgive characters for going into the dark and spooky woods if they have a reason to go into the woods, but when you wake up and discover some strange, unexplainable, paranormal stuff has been going on, why would you stay? These characters don't stay. This is unheard of in a horror film. But after the very first night, where they hear something in the woods and wake up to discover something at their campsite, they go, pack it up, wrap it up, folks, put your stuff back in the bag because we are going home because I ain't afraid of no ghosts, which is a double negative, meaning I am terrified of these ghosts, let's go home. Even the dude who came there looking for his sister, who you would expect to go, no, I have to stay here and uncover the truth, even he goes, yeah, this looks too dangerous, we came here to find some proof, we can get this on tape, that is enough proof to take to the cops and hopefully they'll reopen the case, let's go home. That, I repeat, is unheard of in a horror film for people to act that sensible. Everyone in this movie has a reason to do what they do. Even the two sketchy weirdo people that you meet at the beginning of the film who you're supposed to look at and go, oh, I don't know if we can trust them, even they have motivation for what they're doing. Even they have an explanation for why they act the way that they do, and even they are knowledgeable about this area, so they at least add something to this group. I'm not going to lie to you. When I saw how many bad reviews this movie was getting, I got excited. Because nothing makes for a better review than taking a bad horror film and going, look at these idiots! Why are these idiots acting like this? Oh, they're so stupid. Oh, they're out of their damn full minds. Why would anyone do this? But after I left the movie, I thought back to it and went, no, there was a reason for that. There was a reason for that. That was kind of dumb, but I can understand why they would have done in that situation. Not since Cloverfield have I seen a found footage film where I said, what are you doing? Fewer times. And as I said, one of the major complaints that people have with that first film is that nothing really happened, and then when something finally did happen, the film was just over. Now, as I said, I don't know if I would necessarily agree with that complaint, but I can understand it. However, in this film, night one, it sounds like Sasquatch is outside their tent looking for his beef jerky, and then bam, you are off to the races. Because this film knows that you know what's going to happen, so why make you wait for it? It hits you fast and hard, but at the same time, it gives you time to let the tension rise. It still gives you that time to feel creepy and anticipate what's going to happen. And then, night two, they start throwing the kitchen sink at you. Night two, everything starts happening, and no spoilers, although I do have a spoiler talk, which I will link to at the end of this episode, so no spoilers, but in the trailer, you do see them return to the house from the first film, and I won't say what happens, but that house was the MVP of this entire movie. I was genuinely freaked out by almost every single thing that happened in that house. Now, I've been complimenting this film pretty much non-stop, however, it's still got problems. And the first problem that I have to bring up is the editing. Yes, as I said, I am not a fan of found footage films that have too many cameras cutting back and forth because that breaks any illusion that this is a found footage film. However, I gave it a pass on this one because they actually had an explanation for it and a reason for them to have that many cameras for this story. However, they still cut back and forth so frequently, you do not ever once feel like this is a found footage film. In fact, it doesn't even make sense for it to be a found footage film. Do you mean to tell me that someone just found out there in the woods 12 headset pieces, a drone camera, 2 regular cameras, every single piece of recording equipment that they had in there and went, oh, I could splice all this together in a movie? It makes no sense at all. And even if you can buy the idea of someone taking all this footage and editing it together, the camera work doesn't make any sense. These are supposed to be cameras that clip onto your ear, meaning they move with your head. There are moments where you see someone talking from another camera and he's shaking his head, he's laughing, he's just moving back and forth like this. Then it cuts to his POV from his camera and he has a laser focus that is unmoving even as he walks sideways, not looking at where he's going over rocks and twigs. Or there's another character in here who has big curly hair and she wakes up one morning already wearing the camera piece in her ear. First off, why would she be wearing that to bed? And secondly, her hair is so big and curly, there's no way you could see anything coming out of there. If you cut to the POV from her camera, it would just be a hair forest. Which, by the way, would have been a great name for an 80s metal band. The whole point of a found footage film is to fully immerse you, to make you feel like you just found this tape. However, when there are so many shots in here that clearly could not have been recorded with the equipment that they had by the people in this movie, yeah, it takes you out of that. It breaks that illusion. And if you were going to make this feel like you just edited all this footage together, make it feel like you edited this together. This film wants to have its cake and eat it too, by feeling like something that someone edited together, but also feeling like fully immersive. You just discovered this tape out there and you're watching it as it happens. And man, you can't do that because there are so many shots in here that if someone found this footage and edited it together, they wouldn't include those shots in there. Like there's a shot of just a couple bees flying around and it's just a couple seconds of that. Why would that be in this if someone was editing this down to be the actual story, to actually show what happened? That's not important at all. Or there are so many shots where you see them just walking through the woods and then we'll just jump by a few seconds. They'll just pop ahead by a couple of frames. You would have taken that out. That shot was not important to this. Yeah, if I found this tape out there, I can imagine that happening to the footage. I can imagine someone just digging around with their camera to record some bees. Not if someone's editing this together. And the same thing goes for the sound editing. In that first film, all the sounds that you hear outside the tent sound like they're actually coming from within the woods because they were actually coming from within the woods. Every sound effect that you hear in that first movie was being created by people going out there in those woods, snapping twigs, throwing rocks, playing eerie sounds from a boombox. So when they say, what's out there in the woods, it actually sounds like something is out there in the woods. In this film, all the sound effects are crisp, which normally would be a compliment, but they're crisper and louder than the audio actually being picked up by the camera, so it's really obvious, yeah, there's nothing there. All these sound effects exist on an additional audio line in the editing room. And back when found footage was just starting out, you would have one camera in the movie, and because of that, you didn't end up seeing everything, and honestly, we understood that. We understood that, hey, if you have one person running with a camera, they're not going to be able to pick up everything that happens. In fact, many times that would actually add to the mystery of the story. However, when there are 12 cameras in this movie and everyone has one attached to their ear, in their hand, and flying above them at all times, yeah man, not showing us stuff, it doesn't add to the mystery, it's just annoying. For example, there's a subplot in here where one of the characters ends up getting sick, and they get sicker and sicker throughout the movie. And when you finally see what it is that caused her to get sick, you see it for a quarter of a second before it's flung off screen, And every single person I've talked to who has seen this movie has no idea what that was that they found, and they're all kind of ticked that they don't know what it is that they found. It really feels like we got cheated. It feels like we did not get an answer to this question we've been building up throughout this entire film. Same thing goes for when they're just running in the woods and they see something off there and scream out, "What is that?" In the first film when they do that, again, you got one camera. It's excusable if you don't show it. In this one, when so many people have cameras, you expect one of them to capture something. In fact, they even tease you with it because there are so many times that they're running and you know something is there and you will see in the tiniest corner right over there a quick little sliver of something before it is gone in the blink of an eye. That's not intriguing. That's not pulling me in and capturing my attention. That's just annoying me. And again, I'm not saying that you have to show us everything. In fact, I fully understand how oftentimes not showing us everything can actually be scarier than actually seeing something. And just to give you an example, the moment they get to the house at the end of this film, every single thing that happens in there is the perfect example of showing you just enough to have you wondering, what is that, but still be intrigued and terrified by it. And I know that I applaud this film because it was basically the first movie but done right. However, yeah, it's basically just the first movie again. There is a whole mythology around the Blair Witch, and there's so much more that you could have done with it. And I'll admit that when they get into that house, there are so many quick things that you see in there that could actually mean something, and there's so many single frames that pop up whenever the camera footage gets staticky, and those could mean something. And when you get this on Blu-ray, it could be a whole new viewing experience when you pause it at just the right moment. However, watching this in the cinema where people get annoyed if you ask the projectionist to rewind and play that again, yeah, you're not really going to get anything new. Oh, and there was one other thing that I wanted to complain about. One other thing. What was it? There was one other thing that was bugging me. If only I could remember it. Maybe if you all stare at the camera really closely, just stare there. I promise you, nothing spooky is about to happen if you just stare at the camera in 5, 4, 3, 2. Oh, that's right, the overload of jump scares. Again, in the last act of this movie, they do horror right. However, up until that last act, this thing is loaded with jump scares, and it's the most annoying type of jump scares. It's not tree branches falling, it's not sounds out in the woods, it's not even that annoying jump scare cat just popping out of nowhere. No, the jump scares that they have all throughout the first 2 acts of this movie is somebody just being super quiet and then screaming in reaction to nothing, and they amp up the volume of their scream so that it surprises you with how loud it is and how it just comes out of nowhere. Even if you see it coming, they amp up that volume so high that you will still jump at. And that's not a scare. That's like saying joy buzzers are scary. That's like saying touching a doorknob and getting shocked by it is scary. It's not frightening, it's just unexpected, not good. However, despite all those problems I have with this movie, when this film works, it works. And it ends so strong, and it fixes so many of the problems that I have with these types of films, that honestly, yeah, I would still recommend it. I still walked away from it enjoying it far more than I didn't enjoy it. And that's why I have to give it my score of 1 copy of Wreck, Frankenstein style sewn together with a copy of Paranormal Activity 2. Because this film has some of the most positive parts of some of the best found footage films, but they splice in there some of the problems of the worst. Well, maybe not worse. I mean, I did say Paranormal Activity 2, not 4, but end of the day, it's still worth sitting through the bad to get to the good, so I will recommend it to any horror fan looking for something to get you in the Halloween spirit. So there you go, everyone. Thanks for watching today's episode, and if you happen to see this movie, then I hope that you enjoy it, because as I said, it was honestly refreshing to see a horror film where everyone wasn't just an idiot. I can't tell you how many horror films I've seen where the protagonist is just an unlikable a-hole who does nothing but shout the whole time and wanders off into trouble for the dumbest reason, and that, oh, hold on a second now, hold on, getting some. Oh, snap. There's a Pikachu around here. Thanks for watching, everybody, but I got some hunting to do. Come on. Come on. Yeah, got him. Ah, crap.